A small steamboat crawls up a fog-bound river, deep in a continent it does not understand. The men aboard cannot see 10 feet ahead. Out in the white nothing, a drum is beating. Then the fog lifts, and they realize the riverbanks are lined with people they were never meant to find, moving toward something at the end of the water that no sane man should want to reach. That scene is the spine of two stories. One is a novella published in 1899, written by a Polish sailor who taught himself English as an adult. The other is the most expensive, most disastrous, most legendary war film ever made. They are the same story. And almost nobody who quotes Apocalypse Now has read the book it was stolen from. Here is the argument I want to make. Heart of Darkness is not about the jungle. It is not about savagery. The horror Conrad was writing about was not out there in the trees, it was sitting in an office in Brussels, wearing a clean suit, signing paperwork. And once you see that, you cannot watch Apocalypse Now the same way again. Start with the man who wrote it, because his story is stranger than the fiction. Joseph Conrad was not really named Joseph Conrad. He was born Józef Korzeniowski's in what is now Ukraine, to Polish parents the Russian Empire treated as enemies. He went to sea at 16. English was his third language, learned in his 20s from sailors and dock workers. He would become one of the greatest stylists the language has ever produced, and he never lost his accent. In 1890, Conrad did something that would haunt him for the rest of his life. He took a job as a steamboat captain for a Belgian trading company, working the Congo River. He went up that river himself. What he saw there nearly killed him, physically and morally, and a decade later, he turned it into a book. So when you read Heart of Darkness, you are not reading invention. You are reading a witness statement. That changes everything that follows. But what exactly did he witness? That is where the real horror begins. In the 1880s, King Leopold II of Belgium did something no king had ever done. He acquired a colony, not for his country, but personally. For himself. A private estate the size of Western Europe, which he called, with breathtaking nerve, the Congo Free State. It was free for exactly one person. Leopold never set foot in the Congo. He ran it from palaces in Belgium, as a business, extracting first ivory and then rubber. To hit the rubber quotas, his agents used a system of terror so precise it has its own grim statistics. Villages that failed their quotas were burned. Hostages were taken. And to prove they had not wasted bullets, soldiers were required to bring back a severed human hand for every cartridge they fired. Baskets of hands. That was the accounting system of a European monarch in the lifetime of people's grandparents. Historians estimate that under Leopold's rule, the population of the Congo fell by roughly 10 million people. Conrad was there. He saw the chained work gangs. He saw men left to die in what he called the Grove of Death. And here is the detail that should stop you cold. The book softened it. The reality was worse than the novella. And Leopold sold the whole thing as charity. He called himself a humanitarian. He hosted geographic societies and anti-slavery conferences in Brussels, while his agents ran the most efficient extraction machine the continent had ever seen. The public relations operation was as advanced as the cruelty. He hired journalists, paid off critics, and printed his own version of events, so that for years, the people of Europe genuinely believed their king was a saint civilizing the dark continent, while the baskets of hands piled up out of frame. That is the lie Conrad came home carrying. Not the lie of the jungle. The lie of the office. So why does everyone think Heart of Darkness is about the jungle being dark? Because of one word, repeated and almost universally misread. Darkness. Read carelessly. The title sounds like it's pointing at Africa, at the wilderness, at the people Conrad's narrator meets. That is the racist reading, and the novelist Chinua Achebe famously attacked the book for it. It's a fair fight and worth having. But look at where Conrad actually puts the darkness. The book does not open in Africa. It opens on a boat on the River Thames in London, the heart of the largest empire on earth. And the narrator's first real observation is this, and this also has been one of the dark places of the earth. He's pointing at England, at Europe, at civilization itself. The darkness in the title is not the jungle. It is what supposedly civilized men do when they get far enough from anyone who might judge them, when the only law is the quota and the only god is the balance sheet. The horror travels into the Congo wearing a starched collar. It is bureaucratic. It is economic. It is us. Hold that thought, because now a film director is about to pick up this exact idea and aim it at a different war. In 1976, Francis Ford Coppola flew to the Philippines to make a Vietnam War movie based, loosely, on Conrad's novella. He thought it would take a few months. It took over a year, and it nearly destroyed him. A typhoon flattened the sets. The Philippine military kept recalling the helicopters he'd rented for combat scenes to go fight an actual insurgency. His leading man, Martin Sheen, had a heart attack at 36 and had to crawl to a road for help. And Marlon Brando arrived to play the central role, grossly overweight, having never read the book, having barely read the script, so Coppola shot him mostly in shadow and let him improvise. Coppola later stood up at the Cannes Film Festival and said something extraordinary. He said, "My film is not about Vietnam. My film is Vietnam." The production had become the thing it was about. A well-resourced operation marching upriver into chaos, hemorrhaging money and sanity, unable to turn back. He didn't just adapt Conrad's plot. He reenacted Conrad's argument with his own life. There's a detail from the shoot that makes this almost unbearable to think about. The crew flew in real corpses for a scene, bodies a local supplier claimed he could provide, until it emerged the supplier may have been a grave robber, and the production realized it had no idea where the dead had come from. A film about men losing the line between civilization and atrocity had, in the making, walked right up to that line itself. The mirror Conrad built had started reflecting again, 80 years later, on the other side of the world. Look at how exact the mirroring is, because this is the part film students miss. Conrad's narrator, Marlowe, travels upriver to find a company agent named Kurtz, a man who arrived full of high ideals about civilizing the natives, and who instead set himself up as a god, surrounded by violence. His outpost ringed with severed heads on stakes. Kurtz is what the system produces when you strip away the paperwork and let a man act on what the quotas were always really asking for. Coppola keeps the name. Colonel Kurtz. He keeps the journey upriver. He keeps the idealist who went mad at the end of the line, the heads on stakes, the company man sent to find him. He even keeps Kurtz's dying words, the horror. The horror. But here's the move that proves Coppola understood the book better than his critics did. In the film, Kurtz isn't insane because the jungle drove him mad. He's the one man who looked clearly at what the war actually was: the bombing, the body counts, the lies briefed in air-conditioned rooms, and stopped pretending it was civilization. The official, polite, bureaucratic war is the madness. Kurtz is just the man who said so out loud. That is Conrad's thesis, transplanted whole. The horror was never in the wilderness. It was in the office that sent you there. So what do we do with this, now more than a century after Conrad and half a century after Coppola? We stop letting the story comfort us. The easy reading, savage jungle, civilized men, things fall apart out there, is the version that lets everyone at home off the hook. Conrad refused that. He had seen the clean men in Brussels who never raised a hand and signed off on the baskets of hands anyway. He knew the most dangerous person in the whole machine is the one who keeps his cuffs spotless. Heart of Darkness endures because it names a permanent fact about power, that the worst things are rarely done by monsters in the dark. They are done by ordinary employees, hitting their numbers, far enough up the river that no one is watching. Leopold did it with rubber. Kurtz did it with ivory. And every reader, in every generation, is invited to ask which quota they're currently helping to fill. Conrad didn't write a horror story about Africa. He wrote a mirror and pointed it at the people holding the book. If this changed how you read Heart of Darkness, or how you watch Apocalypse Now, subscribe right now. Every week, we go up the river into the books that built the world, and we pull out the argument you were never handed in school. New video every week. And if this was worth 10 minutes of your life, hit that like button. It's the single clearest signal that this kind of story deserves to be seen. Don't let it disappear into the fog.